Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. Today, I am very fortunate to have Lisa Song Sutton with me today. And just a little bit about her. So she has a fascinating story from modeling to attorney to entrepreneur and many things in between there. But what I found out is that she has a desire to partner, which is unique for most entrepreneurs. But she understands, hey, I'm really good at certain things and I can find other people that might be better at other areas and we can make a dynamic duo together. Now, in addition to her entrepreneurial skills and ability, probably the two things she enjoys more than just entrepreneurship is one, helping other people. She's a very philanthropic person, but two, helping save dogs. So excited to get to connect with you today. So thanks for being on, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So just in case you haven't listened before, the premise of the podcast is who knew in the moment. So those small moments that when you're in them, you just don't really realize exactly the magnitude that they're going to be in the future. But in hindsight, you can look back and say, yes, that was a pivotal moment to get me where I'm at. So Lisa, your story has a lot of twists and turns, but one that starts off is you didn't grow up or you weren't born in the United States. You moved to Arizona as a young child. So talk a little bit about that, starting off in a different country, moving to Arizona when you were young.
Sure. Well, and I grew up in a really small town in southeastern Arizona called Sierra Vista, next to an Army intelligence base called Fort Huachuca. My father was in the military. My mother, originally from South Korea. So, definitely grew up in like a bicultural household. And I just think that, I got a chance to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Now, I found it interesting that you had a quote that said, even at 6 years old, you said, all right, I either want to sing, dance, model, something. I want to be a performer. So talk a little bit about like, even at a young age, what it was about being a performer that stuck out to you.
Yeah. So, growing up, I was in like every extracurricular under the sun. So, piano lessons, flute lessons, tap dance lessons, all the things. And I just loved it. I loved, being under pressure and performing. And I just really, really enjoyed that. And so my parents saw that that was something that I excelled at. So they're like, okay, like what are ways that we can push her, where she's in a place where she can be pushed. And so I did a lot of like music competitions, and I started public speaking. I mean, there was like so many different avenues and outlets that I could explore. And I think anytime that you can explore that as at young of an age as possible, it's really helpful.
Now, not everyone just loves those activities. Sometimes it's like a parent forces you to do it and you're like, crap, I don't really want to do this, but I'll keep doing it. Or sometimes you're like nervous to do it and you have to like overcome fears, obstacles. So talk a little bit about for you, were there certain things that you were either daunting to you or certain things that you didn't want to do that parents kind of like kept nudging you to do?
I think what I appreciate the most about the way that my parents kind of set up all my extracurriculars was that I got a chance to try everything. And then when there were things that I was innately good at, that's when I got the push. For example, they put me in softball in the 3rd grade and I hated it. I just cried the entire time and it was so not for me.
Yeah.
And so, they made me stick out the season because you finish what you start, right? But then after that, no mas, right? But, in contrast with music, I mean, my teachers were telling them, they were like, she's really, really good. Like she's picking up really fast. She has a gift. And so based on that feedback, and I think, as humans, it's human nature that like, we like what we're good at and we're good at what we like.
Right.
And so I liked it because I was good at it. Right. And so my parents, my mom in particular, I mean, she made me practice twice a day. I practiced an hour in the morning and an hour at night. And just that level of discipline. And they talk about how it takes, 10,000 hours to master something. Right.
Yeah.
That level of discipline and time management was something that was instilled in me very early. And I appreciate those early lessons.
Yeah. And you realize later on down the road, it's like, oh man, what I was learning at, 8, 9, 10 years old, parlays into a future date.
100%. Exactly.
I love it. Now there's a special teacher individual in high school that says, hey, you've got a unique skill set. You might want to pursue a certain type of career. So talk a little bit about, that conversation, or, I mean, you remember it. So it must've been pretty important in your overall decision.
Yeah. So, and I think it was just a culmination of things, right? So, my parents had a joke when I was younger. They were like, you either have to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I was like, why is that? And my dad had this joke and he was like, you either have to be a doctor to take care of me in my old age or a lawyer to sue the SOB that doesn't. And so it was just like this running joke that we'd had. And certainly, by the time I got into high school, I realized, reading and writing came very innately to me and it's something I loved. And so I was in AP English and, these other places where I could just really, really excel and enjoy that. And I realized like law school was going to be, a great trajectory. And I tell this to, college students all the time too, or high school students even who are thinking about higher education. I think law school is the best bang for your buck in the sense that it's 3 years JD program after you finish your bachelor's, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you can come out and you can either take the bar and practice, or you don't have to, or you could still take it and practice and then still go do something else, right? But you have a lot of options. Whereas, if you go get a master's degree in a specific subject or a PhD or certainly a medical degree, right, an MD or a DO, now you're getting smaller and smaller and smaller into what your specialty is. And you really are quite pigeonholed, I think. And you're kind of forced into, okay, I have to choose this career and it has to be part of my life for the next 40 years of my life or whatever it is. And I love that with law, there's so much flexibility. You can have any bachelor's degree and go to law school. And I just think there's a lot of true diversity in that too. I mean, I was a political science major because that's like what you did. That was like the stepping stone that was recommended. And in hindsight, I wish I should have just gotten something different because you can have any bachelor's degree with your law school.
Absolutely. So something that I don't want to just breeze over, but at 19, you start doing some modeling. So this is important. I promise, guys, I'm not just calling her out, but at some future date, this is important to her overall story. So talk a little bit about how you got into modeling while you're in undergrad.
So I modeled all during college and law school, and I got scouted in Tucson at the University of Arizona, and it just started with like kind of your stereotypical like college model, college magazine, like college calendars with the football and the U of A jersey, like that kind of stuff. And then when I got to Miami, that's when my modeling career really took off because that's when I got a chance to actually start doing like a lot of print modeling. And so I was in, Maxim, FHM, GQ. I got a chance to be in some really great publications and forge relationships, right? I was traveling Fashion Week, photo shoots down the Bahamas. I mean, I was working with every major photographer under the sun. And so it was just incredible networking. I got a chance to meet so many people that I definitely otherwise would have never have met.
Yes. And one of those people is a gal named Danielle. So how did you guys meet? Because it ends up being a pivotal relationship, but how did the two of you meet?
Yeah, we met in the modeling industry. We were extras on, it was a TV show. It was a TV show that was being filmed down in Miami. I can picture the guy's face. And I don't remember what it was. But we were like extras where they sent us like walking across the beach. You know what I mean? So it was like 8 hours of that basically, but like we were like outside with like no shade and then just like stand there. Yeah. And then wait for them to be like, go, and then we'd like walk and then stand on the other side and like wait. Like it was just, it was 8 hours of that. Right. And then we were like commiserating and bonding over like the few snacks we had brought like in our bags. We're like eating like trail mix, like, so we became friends, right, over that 8-hour course of the day, stuck together, of course, became fast friends. And then we became friends from there. And then fast forward, we ended up starting City Cupcakes together in 2012.
Yes. And it sounds like such a simple transition. We just happened to start this cupcake company. No. So you finish law school, you move back to Arizona.
I moved to Vegas.
Moved to Vegas. Yep. And you're practicing inside of a law firm and things are going really well there, right? You're having success. You're moving your way up. But you have this friend still, Danielle, and you guys are talking one night and it sounds like she's like helping some friends out. Hey, periodically I make these like alcohol infused cupcakes. And you go, well, gosh, that should be a business, not just a hobby.
Yeah. I'm like, that's a great idea. And I'm like, you should do it in Vegas. Like this is the place where people come to overspend, overindulge, buy and do things they're not going to buy and do at home. Perfect. Right. And she was like, she was in Florida still. And I was in Vegas at the time. And I was like, okay, like you have to move. Yeah. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't even know how to bake, but I'll tell you this, like, it's a great idea and I will help you. build the business. And I just bought I made like every mistake in the book, right? Like I just bought my house. I'm like, move in with me. Like I have all this room, like move into my house. Like it was just the craziest, most bonker thing. And it worked out.
So I want to ask about this because anyone that's an entrepreneur typically has like a few people in their life that they like to bounce ideas off of, right?
Sure.
And sometimes those people give you advice that's designed to like keep you safe, not necessarily the advice to have you become successful. So the people in your life that you like really appreciate and, look to for answers, what was their response to this idea?
So the cupcakes, everyone was like, no, like my mom was like, don't quit your day job. Everyone was like not feeling it. Especially because I was not a baker by trade, right?
Yeah.
So everyone was just like, no, like that's cute. But there was like a bit of a spark, like my friends in like the entertainment industry and like food and beverage, like they were like, that's interesting. Like, cupcakes, like, but my circle of people who are close to me, they were just like, don't quit your day job, like they're like, that sounds fun, but like, come on. And so it's interesting because when you get feedback like that, I was in a position where I wasn't looking to like quit my day job, right?
Yeah.
I just thought this was like such a fun, unique idea. And meanwhile, I still kept my day job, right?
Yes.
I still stayed working there full time. But on the nights and weekends, I was baking and running deliveries and helping Danielle. And, we were just building this fun business together. And I think that that's one of the best ways, if you can do it organically like that, really, you can keep your day job and like not have the financial stress of, all that comes with it when you're starting a brand new company. If you can preserve that for as long as you can, I think that's the route to go, because then it's just a totally different level of enthusiasm when you're building the company, when you don't have that financial stress overlay.
Yeah. So I want to dive into that though, because any entrepreneur you meet, you can spin it however you'd like, right? Certain people are complete advocates of no, you have to just have one option. You have to completely immerse yourself in it. Yeah. Otherwise you're going to, when it gets hard, you'll give up and you'll just go back to, what's comfortable. Then there's other people like yourself that say, hey, keep your day job. Like it alleviates a lot of the financial stress and, it makes things go a lot smoother. So what would your comments be to someone that's in a similar situation right now of, hey, I have my full-time job. I'm trying to get this business like up and running though. What would be your advice to someone like that, just based on your experiences?
I mean, at least have one other person, right? At least have an ops person that can help you continue to move the ball forward when you are working your other job, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, take note, like if you're serious about it and like you're really enthusiastic about it, like I said, I spent my nights and weekends working on the business. So arguably, perhaps I spent even more time on it than I would have if I didn't have my day job, right? And we were kind of forced to have to work on the business together, and maybe we were unmotivated, or all these other circumstances could have popped up.
Yeah.
Instead, every moment that I had spent on City Cupcakes, especially in the early days, I was so excited, right? I was so into it, and we had so much fun. And so, that's what keeps you hungry with it, is when you have that enthusiasm level. So you have to follow your effort.
I like that. And once again, important to note that she did partner with someone. So there was someone else getting some work done, even when you were doing the
100%. Yes.
job. That's good. So it starts off in your house in 2011. And then in 2012, it gets enough traction that you decide, let's venture out of the house and actually get a retail or commercial space.
Yeah, so we did a shared space kitchen. And to this day, I still advocate for that, especially if you're like a startup with any sort of food and beverage. Go shared space if you can. I mean, it's, really economical option. Look, you aren't baking 24 hours a day, so you don't need like a standalone space, right?
Yeah.
So go to a place where you can, do it economically and bootstrap. And you get a lot of the stuff that you're going to need anyway, the equipment or, the health department designation, all that kind of stuff. And yet you don't have to shell out the thousands of dollars for the startup cost to do that when you're already just trying to start the company.
You bet. Now, before we transition from this point to the next one, I got to ask, what was the selling point to Danielle to get her to move from Miami to Vegas? Because I mean, that it's one thing to be like, hey, I'll come do this for a few months, but it's another thing to just be like, no, I'm up and moving my life from Miami to Vegas.
Well, I had pitched it because this was not like hey, I'm going to quit my job and we're going to start this business, right? It was like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. You have to do it in Vegas. I think it would really work in Vegas. And, it was just we had the setup, right? Like
Yeah.
I had my house, she could move in, let's just start it and see what happens. Like there was so no pressure. I wouldn't even start with like a business plan. Like there was so low pressure. And it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, let's try it for 6 months. And like, if it doesn't work out, the worst case scenario is that you have to move back to Florida. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like Vegas is not a bad place to be,
Absolutely.
So
I
yeah,
agree.
it was just it was a bit of an easy sell from that front.
Yeah.
But then also, luckily she was in a place in her life where like she could do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Luckily we weren't, it's not like we were tied down. It's like we had family and kids and that kind of thing at that point. So great, like why not take the risk?
Love it. Now you guys get, once again, you're growing, the business is growing, but you get this one-off email that you guys contemplate whether it's even real or not, but you say, worst thing that happens is we respond to it. Talk a little bit about this email from a Fox News individual that ends up being a catalyst to growing the business.
Yes. So just, a few months, very, very early on, we got an inbound email to like the generic connect@citycupcakes.com email. And it was this person who was like, hey, I'd love to film with you guys. We're doing a story on like alcohol and the strip and treats on the strip. Can you guys film tomorrow? And we're like, what? And we look all the way down at the email address signature, and it was at foxnews.com. And we were just like, okay, maybe it's legit. So we call the reporter back, and he's like, that was like a cold email I sent out to like 20 businesses. He's like, you guys are like the first ones to call me back. He's like, can you film at like 6:30 tomorrow morning? And we were just like, what? So that was such a great lesson, because it was like within 10 minutes of like us receiving that inbound that we just picked up the phone and called him. And he said straight up that like we were the first ones to call him back. So we got the slot, we weren't special. Like it was just us, it was just us being responsive.
Yeah.
And that segment ended up going viral, and we were on the actual homepage of foxnews.com in 2012. And so that video just got picked up everywhere. And it aired in, Canada, Mexico, United Kingdom, Australia. Like it went to Fox News Business International. And it was great because literally we started getting orders from people who were like, hey, I'm visiting Vegas for my bachelorette party. And they were coming in from like Australia, right? So
yeah.
we just got a ton of like international visitors.
So at that time, were you doing any shipping, or was it you had to come to Vegas to be able to get your product?
You had to come to Vegas. And at that time, it was actually perfect because that was still kind of the recession a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you had a lot of international travel happening because the dollar was weak.
Right.
So you've had people coming from the UK, from Europe, Canada, and they were getting a chance to really enjoy Vegas.
That's awesome. And now today, though, you have multiple locations and you ship. Is that correct?
Yes. So we have shippable products. We have our cake bites and our cake jars that we ship.
All right, perfect. So we'll include a link down below so you guys can get your alcohol-infused delicacies sent to your front door. So that's amazing. Now, in 2013, and I want to preface this. So your mom was Miss Korea, is that right?
Yes.
All right. So once again, guys, I'm bringing this up for a purpose. There's a reason behind it. She sends you a message and she says, hey, you might be running out of years to compete for a certain title inside of Nevada.
Yeah. So she calls me fall of 2013 and she's like, are you competing for Miss Las Vegas? And I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of busy, like
just run a business.
Stuff going on, And she was like, well, you're getting ready to age out. And I was like, what? I was like, crap. And so 29 is the age cutoff for Miss, MISS, for the Miss division. Okay. And I was 28 at the time. I was turning 29. And so this was my last year. This was my last opportunity at a state title. And so I had to like buckle down, and I hired a pageant coach and like really got serious and ended up winning. I became Miss Las Vegas, and then I became Miss Nevada.
So I got to ask, before your mom reaching out, like, was that ever something like on a bucket list of, hey, I want to compete for this, I'd like to do it? Or was it just, since it was there? I mean, once again, as we're going to find out, I mean, if an opportunity presents itself, Lisa's going to explore it. Was it just something that, hey, it's here, I might as well compete?
So I had competed at Miss Arizona America when I was in college. Once I was 19, and I placed second runner up at state. And it was awesome. It was an incredible experience. I met some great friends, made some great girlfriends. And then that was kind of, I took a break from pageantry because it was never like a true priority for me. I wasn't like, I didn't set a goal of like, I want to win a national title and, all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't on my radar. And I think I talked myself out of it for a myriad of reasons. I was like, oh, well, I'm not tall enough. Or I talked myself out of it. Yeah. I really did. And so when it got around to that time of, okay, well, this is my last shot. Like, this is my last opportunity. And I was like, I have to put my best foot forward. And I mean, I felt like I came in with like some, perceived disadvantages. And I was just like, well, I just have to work with a coach and like figure out what I can do. Right. Yeah. How can I get past, whatever my perceived disadvantages are. And he was like, okay, we're going to just concentrate on interview and on stage question. Because if you can nail those and then get that like 8s and 9s in swimsuit and evening gown, but if you get 10s in interview and on stage question, mathematically, like we'll get you there, you'll win. And so that's what we did. We drilled interview like crazy. And I just went crazy on appearances, on like just community engagement, working with nonprofits, volunteering, like really taking that role of like a title holder and ambassador very seriously. Yeah. And so by the time I got to the state pageant, I had already done hundreds of appearances already as Miss Las Vegas with my local title. And then, so by the time I get to state, I'm already like, look, like I'm already acting like a Miss Nevada. Like I'm already doing the community work that it's going to take, Right. And so the year that I won, the first runner-up the year that I won was the first runner-up the previous year. Okay. So everyone said that like it was her time. She'd put in her dues, all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, well, this is my last year. And so like, if I'm meant to win, like it'll happen, Yeah. But you have to work for it. You have to like put your best foot forward.
Yes. So I want to point something out. And you mentioned a perceived disadvantage. So have you ever read the book David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell?
Yes. Great book.
All right. Perfect. So you're going to get like, once again, it's perceptive, right? That, hey, this is a disadvantage to someone. But in reality, many perceived disadvantages are actually in benefit to you. And so that's neat that the coach kind of like helped you see that and point that out for you.
Right. Or just go in hard on your strengths, right? It's like, there's only so many, platform high heels that you can wear to like fix your height, right? It's like, that's as tall as you're getting, that's it. So like, how else do you stand out?
Absolutely. That's amazing. So at this time, so 2013's Miss Las Vegas and then 2014 Miss Nevada.
Yes.
So obviously publicity is great, right? And I'm sure people are like, who's this Lisa lady, right? And they also then see, oh, well, she happens to be co-owner, of City Cupcakes. Did that give you guys more traction in the business, or was it just, it continued to help grow the brand?
All of the above. Yeah. And by that time too, I, had partnered with an agent at Sotheby's. So I had a real estate business going. Liquid and Lace was just getting started as well. And so all of that in combination, it was just such great networking, right? So I'd be out in appearances, meeting people, talking to people, and they'd ask, what else do you do besides this whole Miss Nevada thing? And then that was my opportunity to talk about, cupcakes or real estate or swimsuits or whatever was appropriate for the conversation. And it just really like ingratiated me into the community very, very quickly.
Yeah. So let's break through each one of these. So at what point in the story do you say, I'm done being an attorney, I'm doing real estate and, running Sin City full time?
Yeah. So this was probably like towards the end of 2013. So I was at the firm for like 18 months. Okay. And I mean, to this day, I still have a great relationship with my old boss there. And it was great. I learned a lot. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I just got to a point where I was like, okay, like I don't have to be here. So what's the next step? Like where's the best and highest use of my time? Right. Yes. And that's what it was coming down to, because I was so enthusiastic about what I was building, and getting less enthusiastic about the legal work. And I think anytime you lose that enthusiasm, like your work quality is going to suffer too, right? Because you're just like not that into it anymore. So I could feel that and I could sense that. And I was just like, okay, like let's make a transition.
Absolutely. And the business is doing well enough to financially support that decision.
Yes. Okay. Like that, the real estate, I mean, right. It was like diversification. So it worked.
Absolutely. Now with the liquid and lace. So once again, I'm, as you can tell, not in pageants, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. But I know that those are not cheap purchases. So is that where the idea came from, or how did liquid and lace become a business?
Yeah, so Liquid and Lace worked out with actually a colleague of mine that I met through like modeling industry,
Okay.
and he had access to a manufacturer for swimsuits,
Hmm.
and we just started like having a conversation about stuff, and then it turned into, well, we could build a brand behind it, right, and
Yeah.
kind of private label and see how we could do that, and it just snowballed from there, and it turned into a business.
So, and it's not just swimsuits. They have kind of like a Tom's idea, Tom's the shoe company idea behind it. So talk a little bit about like the philanthropic side of that.
Yeah, so we do what we call a buy one, give one. For every suit that's purchased, we donate a basic set of bra and underwear to a domestic violence shelter partner that we work with. And it's just, a tangible way to, really just kind of help women. And I think that that's, a message that's always been part of everything that I've done and continue to do. And so it's just a nice, tangible way for us to give back.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So do you do like custom orders for, ladies in pageantry? Do you do like mass production of certain styles that people buy, a combination? Tell me a little bit about that
Yeah,
business.
so kind of all of the above. And we actually were the swimwear sponsor for the Miss United States of America
Let's
pageant.
go.
And so and so it's awesome because
Yeah.
we get a chance to help the ladies, and it's just so much fun. Like it's one of those businesses where it's e-commerce, so it's everything's done online,
Yeah.
and it's just it's fun. Like women's swimwear, women's accessories is always fun because it's a chance for women to feel better about themselves and feel good about themselves.
Absolutely. Now, with your partner, once again, I'm counting the hats that are, being put on Lisa at this point. Is your partner doing a lot of the legwork here? Are you doing equally, as much legwork? How does that work inside of this business partnership with Liquid and Lace?
Yeah, so Tim is like, he's all back end.
Okay.
He's a software guy, he's a marketing guy. So he was able to get like all of our e-commerce platforms dialed in, all the Facebook ads and all the stuff. I was executing our like in-person stuff.
Okay.
So usually, non-COVID year, it's every summer we would do a swimwear fashion show on the strip. We've done them at Palazzo, we've done them at Tropicana, we've done them at Paris.
Wow.
And it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
So I was in charge of like, or I still am in charge of like our in-person stuff that we do.
That's awesome. Now, by chance, were there any Sin City cupcakes at these events?
Always, of course. All about like cross promotion, cross
Yes,
collaboration for sure.
absolutely. I love that. I figured as much. I just had to throw it out there. Now, as you're doing real estate as well, you partnered with an individual that had a little bit, longer tenure, more experience or whatnot. But then that, I don't know if the relationship becomes old, but you just decide, hey, there's another opportunity. I'd like to do elite homes. So talk a little bit about, kind of that transition into doing a different style of real estate.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a partner that I had started with at Sotheby's, and we worked together as a team. Our business relationship ended in 2017. And I brought in a new partner. Her name's Kathy Quo, and she's amazing. And so we kind of just like revamped the brokerage, and I left Sotheby's. I brought Christie's to Las Vegas. And so we've got a residential arm under Christie's, and then Kathy also has a commercial division, a sister company that we run, and it's just been incredible. Last year was our first kind of full year, like getting our feet under us with our new agents, and I mean, luckily we had a banner year, and this year it's just been gangbusters.
That's awesome. So for you there, once again, asking about the partnership, what's your involvement in the beginning? What's your involvement today as it's continued to grow over the last 4 years?
Yeah. So initially when I first started, I was also like a working agent, right? I was a selling agent, and I was helping run around and do showings and this and that and open houses and all this kind of stuff. Now as a brokerage owner, I'm not a selling agent anymore. And I'm like basically what's called a non-competing broker, where my role is to help our staff, help our agents, help mentor them, help them with their deals, help bring in business. Like I do business development, right? And I help
Yeah.
bring in clientele. And then I help, disseminate that across to our agents. And I love it. I mean, mentorship and kind of, supporting our staff is always a position that's come innately to me anyway. And so it's wonderful that I get a chance to do it with our brokerage.
So this is deviating a little bit, but I'm curious. So real estate, obviously, it's a tough industry, right?
Sure.
A person that starts in real estate, oftentimes within a year, let alone 5 years, is no longer there or with the same firm. What do
Sure.
you feel like it is about, your guys' platform and your ability to teach, mentor, coach people that, gives you a different spin on that angle in the real estate world?
Well, it's a hustle and it's a grind, and any
Yeah.
good agent is going to know that, right? But at the end of the day, if you know that you're an advocate for your client, like you're providing value. Your job is to provide value and like be an advocate, right?
Yep.
And what's great about Kathy in particular, my partner, she gets that. She started her real estate career in Manhattan, working with CBRE in New York City. So it's like they don't mess around over there, right? Like they're sending their agents out, like door knocking,
Yeah.
trying to get into these secure buildings and stuff. I mean, it's just crazy, but it's like that. It's that type of level of hustle. And so here in Vegas, like all our agents, they're such hustlers. They're
Yeah.
so great. Like they're all about like making sure that like they see it through to the end, and they're going to like go to the ends of the earth for their clients, right? Like that's the type of service that we provide. And at the end of the day, everyone's knowledgeable, everyone's been in the industry. We all lean on each other, and we're a very collaborative group as well. I mean, every Monday morning we have an 8 a.m. pipeline call where everyone goes down and talks about, their buyers, their sellers, their renters, whoever they're working with, and any obstacles they're encountering. And it's basically like a mastermind. I mean, when one of the agents start talking about something they have going on that's a hurdle, literally people are jumping in and they're like, oh, well, I have this property, or I've seen this done, or here's an inspector I used. Like it's very collaborative, and I love that our team is like that.
Absolutely. Now, how did you and Kathy get connected and form this partnership?
Yeah. So we actually met volunteering in the community.
Okay.
So she was on the board of OCA, which is a philanthropic group here in Las Vegas, focused on the Asian American community. And I had been a board member at the time of ACDC, which is the Asian Community Development Council. And so I was emceeing a charity event that they had. And she and I just connected and like became friends.
Yeah.
Right. And then she was my broker rep for a space that I was looking at when we expanded our kitchen operations for City Cupcakes. So we were friends first, right? And then I like became a client of hers basically, and like saw how she worked, and I was really impressed. And that's when I was like, okay, like she might be a really, really great fit for us to work together.
That's awesome. I love it. And, there is a lot to be said about just being active, right? When you're active, you meet people and you pursue relationships.
Totally.
That's fun. So all of these things, right? There's just more and more on the plate. And Lisa says, all right, I want to check out one more thing. And well, there's gonna be two more, but at least the next one, Ship Las Vegas.
Yes.
And so if I understand correctly, you said, all right, I've got this idea and I have a friend who runs a similar type of business, but in California. I want to go learn a little bit about this. So talk about the conversation that happens and how this business starts.
So I knew that I liked the business model, right? Which is mailboxes and then like shipping. And with the mailboxes in particular, at that time, I had a mailbox at a local UPS store here in Las Vegas for like 9 years. And they would just auto charge my credit card, right? And I would forget about it. And I was just like, that's a genius business model, And so I was like looking closer at the business model, and it's basically like mini storage units, right? You have this low maintenance, low overhead item that gets rented out at, $20 a month or whatever it is. And when the client doesn't want anymore, or the credit card goes bad, you just switch out the lock and you put in a new mailbox customer. I'm like, okay, great. So I talked to a friend of mine, Greg. He had 3 UPS stores in San Diego. And I said, if you could do this whole thing over, would you have gone franchise UPS or independent? And he's like, if I were you, I'd go independent. He was like, because then you can service UPS, FedEx, and the Postal Service, and you can configure your store to put in as many mailboxes as that thing will hold. And I was like, interesting. Okay. So then I went up the street to my local place called Postal Pros. That was up the street from my house in Summerlin. And I went to the owner there, Andrew, and I said, I have a business proposition for you.
Yep.
And he's like, what? And I was like, I'm going to open up one of these down at like 215 in Flamingo. So it's far enough away. It's not competition, but I don't know anything about this business. I will pay you $10,000 if you let me follow you around for 2 weeks and I'll capture all your processes. And he was like, okay. And so we did. And that's what I did. I literally trained in his store. Like people thought I was like a new hire. I trained in his store for 2 weeks. I learned his entire system. I learned the register. I learned his mailbox processes. And then I took everything and like packaged it up and replicated it or modified it in my stores.
Now, I want to point that out because a lot of people are trying to do things as least amount of money invested in as possible, right? And sometimes it's worth the capital. At the end of the day, you could have not paid the $10,000. You probably would have spent more money learning things the hard way than spending $10,000 to just get this, hey, here's a crash course of how to do it, what to do, and all the mistakes I've already made. So what about you was willing to make that investment? And what would your encouragement to be to people that are maybe a little reluctant to spend money to be able to potentially make more money in their business?
I was just like, I truly don't know anything about how to like run these types of retail stores. Like I can guess, right? But like here you have someone who's literally doing it every single day. And aside from like trying to hire him, like how can I learn what he knows? Yeah. Right. And I was like, I'll just shadow him for 2 weeks. Like, will he let me shadow him for 2 weeks and I'll pay him? Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's make him an offer that would be like really difficult to refuse. And that's what it turned into.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Lisa doesn't want to do this business by herself. No, she could have, but she says, hey, I've got a friend, Sarah. Sarah could be a business partner. So one, who the heck is Sarah? And how did you elect to have her be the business partner in this venture?
So Sarah is a good friend of mine. And she's amazing. I mean, she's a former teacher. She has a teaching degree, but she was making more cocktailing on the strip, than teaching, sadly. And so that's what she was doing, but she knew that like, she didn't want to stay in that forever. And so I was like, okay, like Sarah's smart, she gets it. And she obviously understands customer service. Like
right.
if you're in that industry, especially here on the strip, you deal with everyone, right? You've dealt with every type of customer, crazy customer, drunk customer, whatever it is, you've dealt with it all. And if you can do it with a smile, like you can handle working at a shipping store. Right. And she's great. I mean, she's really good with training. She's really good with teaching, right? Obviously. And so it was just a no-brainer that it worked.
That's awesome. So once again, we can't let the story stop there. There's always got to be one more thing. So you decide that your geographic location for this first Ship Las Vegas not needs to be, but is going to be in a maybe not ideal location from a safety standpoint, or so you're told. And so as you're in this location, you start realizing like, hey, there's things about the city that really need my help. I might want to go ahead and do some political campaigning. Yeah,
politics was not in the plan. I'll say that right now.
I don't know if I believe any of that. It
was not in the plan, but it was just, it was one of those things that was born out of necessity practically, right? So we had one location in the Southwest. We opened the other location in the Northeast up by Nellis Air Force Base. And, it's abandoned Walmart to this day. It was still our next door neighbor. And I was just like, how is this possible in a city of like so much abundance? And I started calling around, and then I learned that the congressman for the area lived in Virginia. And I was like, that's BS. Like, I don't care what party you are. Like, if you are being paid taxpayer dollars to be the representative of a district, like, how could you even know what's going on here and be part of this community if you're no longer part of the community, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's a career politician. Like, someone should run against him. This is BS. And of course, it turned into I'm going to run against him. And it was the craziest 10 months of my life. Like, it was so nuts and crazy, but amazing. I had an amazing experience. I unfortunately didn't win. I finished 3rd out of 8 candidates in the Republican primary, but incredible experience. And to this day, I still have great relationships and wonderful people. And, we'll see what the future holds. But for now, I'm really excited and happy to support candidates who are like myself, or private sector. Right. And coming off the sidelines and getting engaged and getting involved. And that's really what I'm advocating for, is just private sector to get involved just get involved, like not necessarily as a candidate, it's a lot to run, right?
Oh
But
my
like, just get
gosh.
involved, like support a candidate who aligns with your values, right? Like
Yeah,
donate to them, volunteer your time with them. It's also important.
absolutely. So as you're doing the political side, because obviously that's a huge time commitment. I mean, that in and of itself is,
Massive. Yeah.
yeah, massive. But then we've got all these other businesses. So how does that balancing act happen while you're, really focused on the political side of things?
Yeah, I mean, everyone and everything just had to like step up, right?
Hmm.
And I had a conversation with my partners before declaring my candidacy, just to almost like a, speak now or forever hold your peace, like
Right.
we need to know. And I mean, everyone unanimously, they were like, you have to do this. Like,
Mhm.
we'll figure it out. Like, this is amazing. What an amazing opportunity. You have to do it. And so it was great. So we did.
I love it. Now, something I want to talk about is, so there's obviously, I mean, in the very beginning, when we started talking about all the activities that your parents would help you get involved in, you talked about, hey, it's mastering a schedule, it's mastering calendar. And once again, like I promised at the beginning, that's going to be an important piece of your overall life. How today, having everything going on in your world that you do, how do you elect to master your time?
I mean, it's really just, giving attention where it's due, right? And
Mhm.
so, we have to take a look at what's going on in the businesses, what's functioning well, what's not functioning, right? And so, for example, with Ship, like we just did like kind of an overhaul audit of like store appearances and internal processes, like audit basically. And we just like tightened all that up, like cleaned all that up. So, I think you have to look at metrics, like if you can revisit things maybe on a quarterly basis,
Yeah.
just so you're getting an idea and a pulse of where things are at. But ultimately, I mean, no 2 days are the same for me. Each day is
Can only
different, which is
imagine.
which is crazy but exciting. But
Yeah.
now, the nice thing is that things have aged, right?
Yeah.
My oldest company is 9, my youngest company is 3. So it's nice, right? I'm not in startup mode anymore, which is nice.
Something tells me there might be a new startup brewing, but I'm not gonna
There's
say there's.
always something. Yeah, like I'm pitched constantly. And now, like as an angel investor, I'm excited to, maybe put a little money around and help advise, maybe do a little like brand ambassador,
Yeah,
type of thing with companies that I invest in, but I'm not trying to run day to day.
I can fully understand that. Now, a question I do have, so something that I've had to learn to incorporate in my life, and I'm a work in progress constantly, is saying no to the things I want so I can say yes to the things that I want most.
Mm.
Right. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of people struggle to say no, whether it's for um, the perception, right? Oh, that person's standoffish or they're rude, right? I mean, whatever it is, right? We all have our reason that we say yes to certain things. But how
Right.
do you balance that with all the different things that you constantly are getting asked to say yes to? How do you balance saying no to certain things so you can say yes to the things that you want most?
Well, when it comes to like businesses that I'm getting pitched, I mean, I just look at, can I be a value, right? Can I
Yep.
even be a value to this business? And does it kind of fit into my wheelhouse or interests? And then I just kind of take it from there. But I think too, certainly as people grow and develop, you get a lot of people who pull on your time, right? And they want to meet you for coffee, or they want to pick your brain, or
Yeah.
all these different things. And I think I just try to be very intentional of like, spending time with people who I know like also have invested in me, right?
Hmm.
For example, I just came back from a trip to Florida. I was down in Miami for my birthday, and it was just so special. And it turned into this like reunion trip. I literally had girlfriends fly in from like
So
Vegas,
cool.
LA, Nashville. I mean, right? Like I had girlfriends fly in, and we were all sitting around, and we realized we've all known each other at least 10 years. Like crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
crazy, because we feel like we look the same, but you're just like, how have we all known each other for over a decade? And we're laughing with like that hashtag no new friends, but there's something there's something important about making sure that you carve out time for like the people who have like known you before you became like who you are now.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
for
there's
sure.
something very grounding and like rooted. Like you have to make time for those people too.
That's awesome. Now, I I wonder from a growing up standpoint, and once again, you became very entrepreneurial. Is there anything in like the early years, whether it's a parent, a friend's parents, or just you, that was entrepreneurial at heart?
I mean, just seeing my parents, like they kept things diversified, even though my father, is a career military guy.
Yeah.
He was 20 years in the Air Force and then 20 years with DOD, civil
Okay.
service. My mom, she was a stay-at-home mom with me until I was in middle school. And then she went and got her cosmetology license. And like now she has a hair salon. But, during all that, they were very invested in real estate. So like they started investing in residential real estate before I was born.
Okay.
And then just, would flip that, right? And it was a long, slow grind of like you sell one house and take the profits, put it into another, right? So it's just this constant movement. And then when I was in middle school, they made their first commercial purchase.
Okay.
And that's when the game changed for them was, getting into commercial real estate.
Absolutely. Gosh, I could ask you questions for hours, but we don't have enough time. So a question that I do want to ask you, and this is something that, a few years back, a mentor of mine had said, and it just really stuck with me. And it's this phrase, and it's called blissful dissatisfaction. Okay. So most people, when they hit a goal, they become content because they hit their goal and they say, you know what, I've reached my goal. I'm now just I'm going to plateau because I just want to make sure I stay here. There are other people that I think you and I would fit into this category where it's like, yeah, I hit this goal, but now what? Like,
What's the next
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
We're
next?
like masochists. Like
Yes.
it's kind of scary.
Yes. And so how do you balance that? Because, it's like, well, if I become content here, I may not become the person that I'm supposed to be, right? I may never reach my full potential. At the same token, if I'm always constantly striving for the next thing and I don't look back at all the amazing things that I've accomplished, it's an unfulfilled feeling, right? So how do
Right.
you balance that of like accepting, wow, I've got a 9-year-old company, I have multiple companies, but at the same time still have, a hunger to accomplish more?
I mean, have you seen the musical Hamilton?
Yes, in
Yeah,
person, it was phenomenal.
oh, phenomenal, right? But where she's like singing and she's like you're never satisfied. Like you will
Yes.
never be satisfied. And I was like, it's me, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, oh no, like, like it's definitely like, it's one of those realizations where it's like, if you know that that's you, right? Then like I think you just have to embrace it and you have to be like, look, like, this is who I am. So like, how do I like keep it moving in a way that also still serves me and like doesn't run me ragged, right? And still allows me to get some sort of semblance of balance. I think a true like work-life balance is BS. I think it's a myth. I think it's a myth. I think if you truly want to excel, if you really want to be like the best at something, of course something's going to give. Of course some part of your life is not going to be performing as well because you're so focused up here.
Bingo. Yep.
Like that's the reality. I think ask any high performer, ask any high level athlete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, of course their family life suffers for a temporary period of time because they're so dedicated to X, right?
Yes.
So, I think that's something that we just have to remind ourselves of and not feel guilty, right? And guilt ourselves about the fact that, oh, like not every single part of my life is Instagram perfect.
Yep.
Right? Like that's not the reality.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you say that because work-life balance, it's become this cliche thing. And to your point, if you really want to excel at something, the idea of balance being I'm spending the same amount of time doing different things is just a crazy thought.
Not realistic. Yeah.
What I always tell people, for me, the balance is when I'm doing something, I'm present. Right. So if I'm going to grab a cocktail with a friend, if I'm spending time with friends, like you're not going to catch me texting on my phone. Yeah. Like I am right here. My phone is in my pocket. It can ring all the time. And I'm just going to let it sit because you have my undivided attention. Now it might only be for 45 minutes, but like for those 45 minutes, like you get that opposed to 8 hours of, I was checking Instagram, I was checking emails, right? No, like you're just going to get me for an hour of time and it's undivided. And then, yes, I'll probably have to transition to something else. But for that 1 hour, you have me.
Right. Exactly. No, you're exactly right. And I think that, as high performers, like that's something we realize we have to do. Like time management is just part of our MO. And so that's what I'm saying, right? Is like make
Yep.
time to make sure you make time to like schedule those times for your friends or schedule time for family or, whatever that looks like. So that way you can feel some sort of, level of balance, even if it's not the same amount of time.
Absolutely. Well, Lisa, you have, I'm not going to say exceeded expectations, because when I was reading your story, I was like, this is a phenomenal story. It has to be featured, but I appreciate your time because you are so darn busy. Thank you for carving some time out for me and for the listeners today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.